tonight we have a really good friend of mine. His name is Jared. He is a man that I met while I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grow up, when I went back to university, and when I was trying to figure out whether I wanted to go into social work or go into something else. I was still trying to decide whether I wanted to go into the business path or the social work path. And Jared gave me the space and the honesty that I needed to really self reflect and decide which way I wanted to go. And I didn't end up going the social work route. That doesn't mean he said don't do it. It means he gave me the space to really help me find out what was important to me. And so I am extremely excited to have him join us. I've had coffee with him a bunch of times. We've developed a friendship since. And he's a really amazing influence here locally for men and just the people in general. So, Jared, I'm really excited to have you here and share a conversation about self-compassion and the way you speak already, and the calmness that you bring. I'm excited to bring this to our guests and have them hear what you have to say about this topic, because I know it's something that is near and dear to your heart, just in conversations that you and I have had. So I'm really excited to have you here. But before we dig in, and before you tell our audience exactly what you're all about, how are you really? How are you?
Yeah. So this is my first podcast. So you've said that I'm very calm, but inside I'm actually quite anxious. I'm excited, but also a little anxious to talk about something so passionate to me and wanting to make sure I mark all the I's and cross all the T's and making sure that I cover it comprehensively. How about for you,
Well,
Robbie? How are you feeling?
there you go.
I am. How am I really? I haven't really had time to think about it, so I'm going to think about it right now. Uh, I'm just going to word vomit how I'm feeling.
Excellent.
I'm anxious too. It's been a busy week. This time around, the holidays is always busy with work and, work parties and trying to get to the end of the year. Then my daughter, she has a lot of stuff going on with school, concerts and stuff that she wants to do and, for school and her social life. I was telling Steve earlier that, you know, Thanksgiving was a week ago and it's like a blur. Like, it's just, this week has gone by so fast. I haven't even had any time to sit down and reflect. And when I don't do that, uh, lots of, I wouldn't say bad things, but not so good things happen. A lot of rumination and things will just pop up in my head because I haven't sat down and reflected on what I'm grateful for, the good things, and some stuff that I need to work through. I let the anxiety of the anxiousness win, and I'm glad I get to sit down and chill out for a little bit, meet you, Jared, and have a discussion about self compassion. I think that's really important, and yeah, overall anxious but ready to relax and have a good chat. Steve, how are you really?
Well, when I got your message earlier about you being called into work, two things went through my mind. One, fuck, I don't really want to do this episode by myself. That was the first thing that went through my mind. The second was I actually reached out to Alec, who's been a guest here a couple of times, to see if he would step in and co-host. And then your message came through saying, "Yeah, I can make it. Things change." So I let him know, and then I calmed down a little bit. But part of the reason why I didn't want you to miss this episode was because the respect that I have for Jared, and I think you would really, really enjoy being a part of this episode. So I didn't want you to miss it. So there was like the two things there: the anxiety from like you not showing up because I just wasn't mentally prepared to do this one on my own, Not that like Jared intimidates me. I literally sat down on this past weekend and had coffee with him. Like I know he doesn't bite, but uh still I just wasn't ready for it. And then it's finals week next week, and I've got a big final coming up. Like I could not do my finals and still get the high 70s, low 80s and be okay, but I demand more of myself. And so I could easily I could not put effort in, get 50s on everything, and everything would be honky dory. But that doesn't help me in my future. So I still want to do well, and I've got to put a bunch of effort into studying for one of the bigger exams that I have. That's attributed to my major, and I want to do well on it. So Saturday and Sunday are big days for me to sit down with another student that is become a good buddy of mine, and who we study together and bounce stuff off of each other and all the rest. So that being said, I can feel the tension inside because there's a feeling of unpreparedness. And after I study and I get a little bit more wrapped around my head that I'll be more prepared for things, that will calm down. But it definitely, the feeling that I have right now is mostly because I don't feel like I'm prepared. I've learned. Oh. Go ahead, Robbie.
I want to ask you a question about that.
Yeah, go for it.
Before we start, I think this is a good thing, because this goes along with self-compassion. How do you know when you've turned the page and you're ready to take that test, or finals, or anything in life? Let's put it that way. That's a better way to word it. Anything in life.
So I'll use this finals as an example because my professor gives us a packet prior to any of our tests. And like, this is a core, it's intermediate accounting. It's literally a core piece of the degree. And I will sit down and I will do all of the examples that are given, then go through the answer key to make sure. I'll check to see where I've flubbed, and then because I don't have other examples, I'll take those examples that I do have, I'll put them into ChatGPT. I'll ask the ChatGPT to recreate different examples based on that example. So I have different numbers. I've got I can rethink through the thought process, and then I can do it again, and then I'll do it again, and then I'll do it again. So it's like about 3 times minimum for each one, and I should be able to repeat them. And so for me, that's an excellent use of ChatGPT, is to recreate the problem so I can solve it with different numbers and just not go off of memory, because I learned early on that I could do the same example and know where the numbers are supposed to go without thinking how I got them there. And that's yep. Not going to help me any.
No.
And so what happens is, and I've done this now enough times this semester, is I know I'm prepared enough when I put this stuff away and I'm not walking around going, I hope I don't fuck this up tomorrow. Like, that's what it comes down to. And I had an example, and I know I'm rambling on a little bit, but I had an example of this year. I would think it was the second test that I had this semester. Third that I had this semester. I got in a car accident on my way into school. I got some guy changed lanes into me, and I show up early for everything. And on test day, I show up an hour early. Like, it's ridiculous. Sometimes the school isn't even open yet. Like, the doors aren't. I'm standing out front. And in that case, I would have been standing out front. But I was so early that I was able to deal with the cops, get everything signed, and blah, 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 blah. and still make it to the exam 15 minutes early. And every part of me was asking for permission to not do this test. Because I was like, I could already see my nervous system was like, I could feel my nervous system was frazzled. I could just feel it. I don't want to do this right now. I was perfectly capable of doing it. I was just being a whiny little baby. And so I went there. I sat down. My teacher never gave me. I went and talked to her. I tried. I was looking for it. I went and talked to her. She's like, you take makeup exam if you want. I was like, no, screw that. I'm going to go and take this freaking thing. So I sat down and I took the damn thing and I got 100% on it. After the car accident, after I didn't want to do it, after I didn't want to blah, 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 blah. Like literally, I got 50 out of 50. And so it was a fantastic example for me of I did all the work and I prepared myself for it, and I was allowed to bring some notes, and I brought some notes, and I had everything that I needed, and I was confident. And even though shit hit the fan, I could show up and I still produced. And so now I have a really good idea of what being prepared looks like.
Yeah, I think too, where does preparation become panic? How much are you preparing and then over preparing and then planning, and then when things don't go your way, how to adjust, to that too. I think that line is sometimes hard to distinguish. When is it that I'm prepping, and now when is it that I'm panicking? So great example there.
Yeah, I mean, I never knew, I think, until then, what preparation kind of looked like, and how to discern like the two feelings now. But now that I've done it enough times, I think, Robbie, if you really asked how do I know because I've done it enough times now that I have an idea of what being prepared looks and feels like. I think going into it the first time, I had no freaking clue. And it was part of the experience of knowing and going through everything that I went through. That's how I'm going to be able to tell for this exam where I'm at.
So it sounds like confidence. You're confident.
Yeah.
So you're confident that anything could happen before or during or whenever part of this, I'm just going to say journey, that you are ready to do the task.
Yeah. I'll still be able to show up.
Yeah. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's move into self-compassion.
Yeah.
Jared.
Absolutely.
Jared, let's have the conversation, man. Let's tell our audience a little bit about yourself first. Sure. Why not?
Yeah, so I've done a few different roles. I'm a social worker first and foremost, first and foremost, and then I wear a role called a social worker and do a few jobs. But essentially, what I do is I teach mindfulness and compassion. I'm a psychotherapist. I've done some stuff in higher education. But pretty much for a decade or so, I've worked with veterans. I've worked with serious mental illness, incarcerated youth, adults, and a lot of men that are carrying a lot of burdens, actually, which is what brings me here to the Forged in Silence podcast. I just think that the first image that when you mentioned Forged in Silence is this, I got this image of this almost like this man who's just wearing this huge burden, cross of some sort for some maybe spiritual people, but maybe just a huge burden with a lot on his shoulders, and no one can see it. And he's alone. And so he's sitting alone in that silence. And that's kind of what I think of when I think of Forged in Silence. And I don't know how accurate that is to your intention, but I figured maybe just starting there and seeing if that hits true to kind of what your hopes are for the podcast too.
I'm going to say you nailed it. Like Steve and I sat down, and our big thing was men suffering in silence. You don't have to suffer in silence. We found through, our journey that suffering in silence isn't the way to go. And, Steve always says, stranger saved my life. So we don't want men to sit in silence anymore. And we want men to know it's okay to talk and have your emotions and your feelings. And No one's going to judge. We're not going to judge. And we're here to help. We're here to listen. We're here to give you space.
I can't say it any better than he did. You nailed it
That
too.
was, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. I mean, and I'm so happy that you're doing that because, I'm not an expert on men. Let me first of all say that. I'm not someone who knows any better than anyone else. I'm not the guy who knows the right answers. I'm a guy. I'm a man. I'm someone that has lived experience with that and lived experience with trauma and mental health. And that advises a lot of why I reach out for help myself and why I try to be that for other people. And so really, I'm coming from a perspective, and where I'm coming from, as my work integrates kind of evidence-based psychotherapy, mindfulness, compassion, but it's really open to mystery, open to the mystery of consciousness, life, and so forth and so on. And so I'm not here to give answers or anything like that. I don't know the right answers. I just know that when we suffer alone, that it's not good for us, and that it seems somewhat unnatural in some way, especially in our current culture and our current upbringing, to kind of feel so cut off, numb, isolated in that way. And so I'm coming from just someone who's had the perspective of seeing men suffer and being there with them during the trenches of suffering. I don't have a magic cure for suffering other than connectivity, other than reaching out. And so I'd like to talk a little bit, hopefully, about some self-compassionate principles today, or some ideas around self-compassion that might make some of those, reaching out for help make a little bit more sense.
What is, you mentioned one thing. I got a question here, but you mentioned working with incarcerated youth.
Yeah.
I kind of want to start there with self-compassion. What does self-compassion look like to incarcerated youth? You talked about the isolation, the numbing. There's probably a lot of those people, those young kids that find themselves in that some kind of trauma or some kind of upbringing that put them in that situation. How do you show? And I can just guess they don't have any self-compassion. That's why they kind of ended up that place. I'm assuming, I'm not sure. But how do you start there? Like, that's a really tough spot with someone that's in that spot and probably has a lot of issues going on in their head.
Yeah, I think that underneath, at the core of every human being, that there's a desire to love and be loved, basic human needs, right? And so like belonging is one of those needs, and you can really see it in kids that are like gang affiliated or in an environment like that. And self-compassion doesn't just look soft. And I think that a lot of times it gets a bad rap, because when people think of compassion, they think of this airy, softy, unicorns, rainbow stuff. But true compassion isn't like that.
No.
You've got a yin side of it, which is soft and nurturing and caring, which is really important. But there's also a balance here. There's this other side of it, a yang side of it, which is fierce and stands up to suffering. Actually, it's more like the martial arts stance of horse stance, where it puts your hand in front to stop, stable, grounded, but stopping and protecting from further harm in both self and for others. And so compassion looks different depending on the context it's placed in. Just like water, if you place water into the context of a cup, it's going to adapt to the cup. Your whole Bruce Lee kind of water idea. You put it in something that adapts to the constraints it's put into. So what does compassion look like for an incarcerated youth? It looks like being able to look inward in a regulated way, without becoming overwhelmed. It's about being able to connect with those more basic needs that they haven't gotten through, unfortunately, through their conditioning, through their upbringing. Just like many of us haven't gotten similar needs met, that in those cases that, that there's an African, I think it's I don't want to get it wrong, but it's a phrase that says that when the youth are rejected from the village, they burn the village down to feel the warmth that they never got.
Ooh.
And so underneath, I think, How it looks is different, but what underneath? So I have yet to find a wound that could not be healed by the presence of compassion, and strong compassion, not weak stuff, soft stuff, both receptive and strong. But I also haven't found a wound that was not caused from the absence of love or compassion either, or connection. And so I think that's really an interesting, how that looks may look very differently depending on who they're conditioning, what they can be open to, what is needed in that situation. Because self-compassion is, it asks the question, what is it that I need right now? What is it I truly need that I'm not getting? Not what I want, but what is it that I truly need? And oftentimes that's a basic human need, like belonging, like kindness, like safety, like protection, like fitting in, belonging, those kinds of community connection. All those things, when they don't get that, behaviors start to show up in order to try and get that. And so I think that we see a lot of that in unfortunately, in group, out group formation, cops versus robbers, Indians versus cowboys. I mean, you can split it up however you'd like. But
so you could almost say that even in those behaviors, like the negative ones that are that fulfill the need of belonging, right? Putting yourself in the spots that are going to get you in more trouble than where you were before, is that filling that need is literally a form of self-compassion, but just in the wrong way.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, there's a really interesting story that I don't think, maybe Robbie, you can weigh in on this. Have you, as you or your audience, heard the story of the clay Buddha in Thailand?
No.
It's a very, usually most people would know if I said something like that, right? It's just a story of a statue that was told, I think, by Tara Brach in some of the mindfulness and compassion trainings that I was in. And essentially, it's a story, it's a true story, that in Thailand, there's this really precious, gigantic Buddha statue. And it was clay. And the whole monastery would take really good care of this very precious, it was very old. I mean, it was centuries old. It's probably one of the oldest clay Buddha statues that they knew even existed, and one of the largest. And so over time, the statue began to crack. And the monks would hurry up and, oh, no, we got to keep it precious. We got to keep it protected. And so what they would do is they would cover it up with more clay and more clay and more clay. And this went on for years. I mean, we're talking centuries, right? And so here you have a cracking clay Buddha that everyone's trying to protect by adding more clay to. And then one day it cracked really, really bad. I don't know if they were moving it, or maybe one of the monks wasn't doing his due diligence, or sleeping on the job. You know how those monks are. And so surprisingly, though, the crack was big enough that the monk was able to take a light and shine it in, and something glinted back. And he's like, what was that? And so he looked closer and he realized that underneath the clay was a glint of gold. And so the monk slowly started to chip away very slowly at that, because, it's a precious statue, chip away at the cracks and start to see that actually underneath this clay Buddha was a gold Buddha. And centuries earlier, when foreign invaders had come in to loot the place, to protect the statue, the monks threw all this clay over it. And
so it looked like a clay Buddha and didn't have the value.
You're right. And so people had forgot that the clay Buddha, that underneath that clay Buddha, because it protected it so well, that they didn't take it, right? And so it protected it so well that they forgot over centuries that, in fact, it wasn't a clay Buddha. It was underneath a gold Buddha. And so what is this? Why is this relevant? Well, it kind of almost thinks to me about what we do as men, right? I mean, We've learned that feelings are liabilities. We were brought up in a culture where it says, hey, you grew up in an environment, softness, you're in trouble. You're ridiculed for that. You're made fun of. You're told to suck it up.
Yeah.
Be useful and don't be a burden, right? And so what is this clay, right? It's this armor that we put on to protect ourselves from a world where we're sensitive and that we're getting hurt. We're taught to not have feelings. We're trained to not have feelings. We're trained to put on an armor to protect ourselves because we do have feelings. And so what do? What's that armor look like? It looks like overworking. It looks like perfection. It looks like pushing ourselves. It looks like performance. It looks like over drinking, overeating. It looks like always having to be right. Right? And that while that protects us, it also keeps us from being connected, held, and so forth. This gold that I'm talking about, I think is really important. A lot of my frame consists of pretty much just three things: awareness, compassion, and this basic goodness. In other words, what I mean by that is that when babies are born, we don't start to love them only when they've performed certain tasks, when they've met a certain performance standard, when they've produced enough. Right? We love them because they're just babies. They're due with unconditional love, right? I mean, they have to be taught what strangers are. And so that part of ourselves has been covered over oftentimes, the sensitive part, the alive part, the capacity to love and to feel. That's the gold. And that has inherent worth, regardless of just as it is. It's just basic worth. It isn't something that's earned. It isn't something it's just freely given. It's the gold, right? And that in order to protect that part of ourselves, we've thrown this clay over and we've mistaken ourselves for all of those, for the clay, for the layers of protections that we've had to build up. We think that we're the numb one, the alcoholic one, the one that can't get it right, the one who's always on edge. And so I think that speaks to a little bit about even what the youth are doing. I mean, they've had to grow up. They've had to be forged in silence before they were adults.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah.
It took an extreme for me to start taking the clay off before I could find my own gold.
Yeah.
I mean, all I did was pack more clay on. And I'm just like thinking about that, and then in my own journey until the crack becomes too big that you're forced to look inside, only to find that it was full of the clay was hiding what I thought was ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The clay was hiding. I mean, I had a drinking problem, so it was doing a shitty job at the end of even hiding that. But was that you too?
Oh yeah. I definitely have a drink. It definitely had a drinking problem. Still do. I just don't drink now. I just try not to do that stuff anymore.
Touche, my friend. Yeah, like once the ugliness wasn't as bad as I thought it was. As the more I stripped it away, the more I actually began to care about myself in a way that I could live with. I think that's probably the best way I can put it. And then stand up for that, which is something I was pretty horrible at doing too. I was good at doing it for other people, but I was never really good at doing it for myself. And that wasn't even it was in a way that I needed to do so I could take care of myself, because taking care of yourself sounds like this another like fluffy thing.
Yeah.
That you're, take care of yourself last after you take care of everyone else. And I'm trying to be careful when I say this, because there's a lot of take care of yourself first, almost to the point of like ignore everyone else and take almost like narcissism is what I'm going to get to. And it's not that.
No.
It's just making sure that I have enough in my cup so I can share it with someone.
Mm-hmm.
Not where it's right empty, where I get into the mode of self-destruction, but where it's there's enough there where there's days where it's overflowing and I can give to my heart's content and give and give and give. But it was really ridiculous when I heard someone like, you can't give from a place of nothing.
That's right. Yeah.
And this is where
from an empty cup, right?
Yeah, you can't. Like, if there's no water in the empty cup, we ain't sharing shit.
Yeah.
And this is where self-compassion started coming in my life. Like, I'm trying to think of what that looks like, and that looks like, even if I'm having a shitty day, I don't need to shit on myself for not being as productive as I had hoped to be, because that's linked to self-worth.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be, I'm too afraid to let people down. And really that is still a reflection of myself being too afraid to let myself down, because I have promised this, or God knows whatever it may be. But what does it look like for you, Jared?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're touching a lot on the cracks and how it might show up in times when we see some. We'll talk maybe some about those costs of holding everything in and trying to remain strong in a little bit. But I really think that we immediately assume that if I take care of myself, it's indulgence.
That's kind of what I was trying to get at there too, because it is construed as it has that, I guess the word I'm looking at, it has that paradox, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that it's important to distinguish between meeting needs and being indulgent.
There you go.
Is it indulgent to give your child food when they need it, to give them care and soothing because they have a flu? How would I treat a friend who is going through the same thing who I really cared about? That's the essence of compassion. So what would I do if the one who I loved, my friend, my brother, my sister, was going through this exact same thing? How would I treat them? And can I treat myself in a similar way? Can I meet needs? I mean, indulgence says, if I ask myself, what is it that I need? My first thing may be ice cream. I love ice cream. And so that's not what I need. What is it that I really need underneath that truly need? That's what I want. And taking into that might overindulge. But what is it that I'm really needing underneath that is comfort, right? The comfort that the ice cream provides, that it makes me feel okay. And so really I'm seeking soothing. I'm seeking something in this situation. What is it that I'm truly need, right? It's not that we need to break down the entire armor or the clay all at once, right? But we can use an opportunity to shine a little light in and say, well, what's underneath this? What's underneath all of these things that I'm doing that isn't keeping my cup full? That in order for me to take care of others, I do have to take care of myself. And I think that we see some of that issues just in our relationships with others. I mean, if I'm closed off, I mean, how many men have I sat with that feel like that they don't feel anything, or they feel rage?
Mm-hmm.
And so when they're around their partners, they don't feel like they can really be there, and their partners know that. They feel like that they're relating to their armor, not to the warrior that lives within it.
Mm-hmm.
So they feel cut off, disconnected, like just quite numb even to things around them. And so I think that it has this relational quality where it feels like, that they have to kind of suffer alone. They can't reach out for help.
I want to hit on something that you talked about, this indulgence and use comfort. And I think I'm going to speak for myself that I got this twisted most of my life till you just said this. And I want you to repeat it, and I want to repeat it too. So I think you said, I want ice cream. What does that equal? Comfort. I know I will always go to something. It used to be alcohol, it used to be drugs,
That's right.
whatever that comfort is, but I don't know how to tell myself or answer myself what I'm looking for because I'm so hurt, if that makes sense. I I want the satisfaction right now. And that ice cream gives me the satisfaction right now. I don't I wouldn't sit there and go, "Well, what do I need? What am I feeling? I just want ice cream." So I'd go overindulge in ice cream or drugs and alcohol. Then I would be numb to everything else, right? So
That's right.
how do you help men or anyone start at that specific point of what do I need?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, first of all, in order to have a compassionate response, you've got to be aware of what you're experiencing. Uh, and so I think that the first step is mindfulness, is knowing what you're experiencing when you're experiencing it, being able to see a thought as a thought, a pattern as a pattern, a belief as a belief, being able to name it to tame it with kind of an objective naming. So, first of all, noticing when I'm being critical on myself, noticing the pattern that I'm wanting to change, noticing that it's not helping me, building that awareness first and foremost that I'm hurt. I can't deal with a wound if I'm not aware that I've been hurt. So the first step, whenever you've ever been hurt, is to stop and to look at the wound and assess it. What is it that the wound needs? What is so that's stopping. If I don't stop, I can't give care to it. I'll just throw something at it and hope it sticks, right? And try and put it in the back pocket and not look at it. Where I
Mhm.
think that the strength of self-compassion is being able to look at experience without turning away, without trying to fix it, without trying to numb it, without trying to get it to go away, but letting to see what is it really, and looking at that, and that may not be an immediate turning toward night and day. It may very much look like a slow process of turning towards discomfort, and then once we're aware of discomfort with a shared humanity, with a sense that, hey, this is discomfort, not my discomfort, not your discomfort, but just discomfort. And what does anyone in this situation, not just me in my perception, need when they're going through that difficulty? So you have mindfulness, the awareness of suffering, the awareness of feeling. You have common humanity, is how you relate to it without being selfish, right? I mean, it's quite selfish to not love yourself, to only treat yourself differently than everyone else, right?
Yeah.
So to give yourself care, in the same way you would a friend, and then giving yourself kindness or compassion in the midst of that, addressing what is it that I truly need. So you have that mindfulness of assessment, you have that relational, how is it that I relate to this in a way that doesn't create more suffering? And then how can I start to alleviate that suffering with an action that is aligned with not moving away?
That made me really uncomfortable. I'm not gonna lie, because
Well,
uh,
well, there's a
you
there's
know
a there's a great poem associated with that process called the Guest House. Have you heard it?
the guest house. Is that what you said?
Go for it.
Yep. Yeah.
Share
So
it.
I'm gonna try to do it from memory because I don't have it here and I don't want to pull it up. But it goes something like, "This human being is a guest house every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a meanness, some momentary awareness arrives as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Meet each at the door laughing and invite them in. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, all has been sent as a guide from beyond. Invite them in, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, invite each guest in. Listen to what they've had to say. For each guest has come as a guide who's been sent from beyond." Wow. Well, I don't think that we're ready to have our house swept empty of its furniture yet, right? And so we don't want to do that, right? And so what happens is that we stay inside the house, we lock the doors and shield the windows, and we say, no, I don't want to look out at who's arrived or let them in. And so the self-compassionate approach is not to just open the door and flood yourself. That would be too much, right? But it's also not compassionate to be completely isolated and alone in a dark house by yourself. And so what self-compassion does is it tells us to start to look towards gently what we've been avoiding or the discomfort that's been building. So we look out the peephole in the safety of our own home and we just see who's arrived. In the safety of just looking. This might be like exploring, just looking, curiosity, just a glance. And then I can close it up in the safe, right? That's all right, that's exploring. Well, then I might, once I get comfortable with checking out the guests and what they're out there, I might invite them in, but I say, hey, wait, you need to stay in the foyer, right? And this is like tolerating. This is like, I can be with you, but only in certain conditions. The advanced one is then to let the guest go in and out around the house as they please. This is what's called allowing. Right? So you move from resisting to exploring to tolerating to allowing, right? This is a slow turning, not all at once. And so by allowing, then you let the guest kind of go everywhere. And that's a little uncomfortable, right? Well, once you get comfortable with that, then you sit down with the guest and you see what they've come to say.
The guest never changes the fucking toilet paper roll, Jared.
That's right. Well, no, here's the thing. You're the guest house owner. Your job is to support them. Your job is to treat them, serve them. Not for them to serve you. Not for them to come in and change your toilet paper. Your job is to make sure they have toilet paper.
Even though you don't like them.
They have food,
or at least you're getting to know them a little bit.
Right.
So I
had most advanced is befriending, right?
Yeah, for sure. Getting to know.
Let them come and go if they want.
Let them come and go if they want. Absolutely. Robbie, I need to ask you now, why did that make you uncomfortable?
That made me like, that's really, so to sit down and even just what you just said is very, it's a lot of work, right? To sit there and I'm 100% or nothing, right? So I'm going to take on 100% and then I'm going to deal with all that all at one point. But after your explanation, I don't have to do that. But I was thinking when I do that, I was just like, all or nothing. I got to do this. And it's very, very, it's going to bring a lot of stuff up. And I'm going to sit there and it's going to be, a lot of hard times with some of the stuff that I'm going through, unpacking that stuff. And, I've learned throughout this journey, every time I learn something new and unpack something new and learn something about myself, then, Steve and I've talked about this before, you can never go back. Once you've unpacked that, you can't go back. And once you start to go back, you notice that you're going back towards whatever it was. Then you learn some more and you dig some more and you keep going and going. And I just have this all or nothing mindset that when I was hearing you say that, I was like, wow, like uncover it all. I don't mean all of my issues, but like uncover it all at once. Like that gold part, like just say an arm, uncover all that gold on my arm and go, oh, I do have some self-worth. I do have this. What am I feeling? How do I work this out? How do I move forward? And I'm going to really try to move through that all at once. I've learned though to slow down, but that's my mindset. So when hearing you say that, I was just like, oh, makes me uncomfortable because I know where I'll go. I'm going to go to the well and we're going to sit down and figure some stuff out. I will come out better, but there's going to be some tears and some hard times. And that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot about doing, like you had a lot, like it take a lot of work. And I wonder if it's not so much doing that is underlying compassion. Maybe that there's an element of doing about meeting a need at the end, but I think it's really more about being and just not doing. I think that we're
That's my
so
problem.
improving that we're not actually
Yep.
in touch with the lack, and then we're not even aware that it's lack, or if there is any lack, or what that lack even might be. And
I heard.
I wonder if this whole doing, like I'm just going to keep improving myself, if that's part of the armor too. If that's just me
Oh,
then wanting
100%.
to,
100%.
cover it up. Well, then I'll be better. And maybe
I'll
it's
put
really
more
not
clay
about
on
being
there.
better, but just because we are.
I heard something today where I don't remember where it was, but it was talking about not doing, just what you mentioned. Don't do anything. And I don't my mind can't comprehend that. Like, don't do anything. It's like
It's hard as
I
fuck
have
to
to do
be still.
yeah, and
Yeah.
right, if we have something that's making us anxious or bothering us, or sadness or anger or loneliness, anything, right? Um, my past was to use drugs and alcohol to numb that pain, and you know now I don't have that, so it's like my brain is always searching how to find that numbness, um,
Hmm.
which I've gotten a lot better, but when at one point I'll have enough where it just doesn't go to that, but it still does, and it's okay. So I think that's part of my problem is with the doing is I ran and numb for so many years that now it's like, hey, just stop. You don't have to, and I'm still learning that, and I need more ways and more connection and talking to more people, and like the tools I have always aren't the best tools. You can always sharpen your tools and make stuff better. It's just like I'm a sponge and want to suck everything in, and I don't want to squeeze anything out.
I think sometimes doing can be an easy way for approval.
Mm-hmm.
Self
It,
approval.
yeah, self approval. Like instead of stillness,
Yeah.
and stillness, I haven't done anything of value. So if I attribute my doing to value, then stillness is not something I'm gonna do, because it inherently I won't get any approval at all from it. Which, I mean, that's just an external thing. What am I looking for? What need am I trying to have met when I'm looking at it from that standpoint? Jared, you touched on something early on, and I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget it, because you've said a lot of awesome things so far. But you said something that and you put it in context too, that a lot of men feel like feelings are liabilities, and we've been
Yeah.
talking about this, and you see it on social media and stuff like that. And yes, men need to get in touch with themselves, that sort of thing. And it's really easy to balk at this idea, and it's also really easy to say, um, this is men accessing their feminine side, blah 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 blah. And I don't think that's entirely right. What I think is, and I'm going to go into this a little bit deeper because I've heard this other term. It's called people say like accessing an emotion and accessing self-awareness. And I think what we're saying when we say this here on this podcast is getting in, like, what are you feeling and when and why? It is so you don't access these 1, 2, 3, or 4 core emotions that we use all the time. Happy, sad, and mad. I'm going to go with those right off the bat. We can access anger really easily. We know what it is. We can access happy easily. We know what it is. and we can access sadness, we know what it is. They all are components of different emotions that we essentially end up naming wrong. But we know how to access those. And so it's what we do with them. So when we bring that up on this podcast, I'm like, how are you feeling? What are you feeling? What are you going to do with it? It's not so you're soft. It's so you can say, this is what I'm feeling. This is how I'm going to respond to that feeling in a way that is true to myself. And this is how I'm going to communicate it, because I don't want to be walked all over. I don't want to be treated like shit. I want to stand up for myself. I want to be this version of the man that I'm striving to be. And without being able to access all of those and put words to them and then give compassion to myself, I can't do those things. And I know this because I haven't been able to do that for a really long time. And it has just been, fairly recently in life where I can turn around and somebody can call me names and I won't give two shits about it because it's not a me problem. And I can turn around and say, okay, I see we have a problem here. Let's talk about it. And stand in conflict. And so I know I just went on a rant, and I know I did that, but I think it's important to know that our feelings become liabilities because we don't know what to do with them. And we're taught to not do something with them. Yes. Instead of figure out
them, right?
What's that?
Taught to not have them at all.
Yeah, put them away. And
because when you do have that feeling, it gets used against us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now and then when it gets used against us, we're like, oh shit, I care that it just got used against me, so now I should put this shit away.
Yeah. Yep. And caring about that stuff, that would be too not what we're talking about at all.
Correct.
That would be too soft, of course. Yes. But no, I think that really even the armor is there because we care. Mm-hmm. I mean, we want to be strong to protect. We've given these messages that you have to be strong for your family, right? What does strength really look like? That doesn't sound like strength for me to avoid my emotions and to pretend like they don't exist, like I'm not a human who we know by science is very clear has the same emotional circuitries as anyone else does, right? But yet we hide those things. We push them away because they're told that they're bad. I mean, we get in marriages where we have to be the steady one. We go on deployments where we have to shut down to function. We go to jobs that teach us that we are the worth of what we produce, right? And so I think that those myths are all there, and that the reason why we're so protective in the first place and we don't want to feel our feelings is because they hurt. Yeah. And that we care about that. And that's the first truth and honesty is, okay, you have emotions. Right? You've been told you don't, but we do have emotions. And so now it's not about whether we do or not. It's not about, do I have the strength to carry this by myself, but what's the costs of trying to carry this by myself?
What is the cost?
Right? I mean, there's significant cost with emotional repression. I mean, we know it goes into the body, it goes into the behaviors, it turns into irritability, stomach problems, sleep problems, drinking problems, numb feelings. It turns into irritability, anger. And when we don't deal with our own stuff, it spills out to the people that we don't want to affect, right? And then we feel like we're a burden to them, which is the thing which was keeping us closed in the first place. The only thing that actually does, and we try not to burden our loved ones with our feelings because we don't know how to feel them ourselves, right? But the only thing that does is make us feel like that we're not there for them because we're not being felt, because we're not feeling our own feelings. And so I think that maybe I'm getting a little bit off topic, but I think that there's real cost relationally to this stuff, that you feel disconnected. You can't be there for others because you don't know how to be with your own discomfort. Your wife and kids may think you're silent and aloof, but you're trying to be that. You're there, but you're not really fully there. And then, let's talk about intergenerationally. And I think that maybe this is where a lot of people don't realize relationally, it's not just emotionally, it turns into health problems, biology. It gets stored in my genes. We know from studies that individuals have stress responses who are never in Holocaust situations, but their ancestors were. When presented with the same kind of visual stimuli, that they'll have a very similar, if not equivalent, stress response as someone who was. And so we know that this gets encoded in our body and in our genes, but not even just there, not in our genes, but in little reactions that we have. To the stranger on the road, we're spilling out this stuff that we're not taking care of, and it's affecting each other. And then we're more defensive. And so I think that there's a real cost to it that creates a big enough crack that we need to be able to look in and say, hey, what's going on here? What's underneath this? So that we can reach out for help. So we can be aware of what we're going through, and we can meet those needs in a way that allows us to meet others' needs. And I think that that's really important of challenging that idea that it's selfish or indulgent. It's that I literally cannot give what I do not have. I cannot make the car go if it has an empty gas tank. I can't pour from the empty cup. And so
I know from experience.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, I know from experience, trying to give what you don't have is very hard. Especially,
Yeah.
In the beginning with my daughter was after I really, got my divorce from my ex, I was, using heavily, then hanging out with the wrong crowd. But I was trying to give that stuff that I didn't have. And now I can look back and see that from where I've come from. But just hearing you say that is, I think a lot of men do that. A lot of men come home, they go to work, they work, hard to support their family. They come home and they try to give, but they don't know what they're giving because they're lost themselves. And it, like you said, it just spills out into everything in their family lives, their work lives, who they become as a person. And it's really hard to see. And we all know men like that. I see it every day.
I mean, I've been that man. I've
Me
been
too.
I've been the spilly pants for sure.
Yeah, spill pants. Yeah.
Spilly pants, Mr. Spilly Pants.
Professionals. I was a professional spilly pants.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, that's how I know of it, is because of the pain of hurting someone who I'm trying to not hurt. By keeping it all in, and it's like, oh shit, that's exactly what I was trying not to do, and then you feel like a failure, right? And so you can all, I'm sure, relate to that, right? It's not foreign.
Yeah, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to yell. I didn't mean to get angry about that. And 90% of the time, it wasn't about that thing at all. It was about the mountain of other things that I ignored behind it. That created the freaking explosion at something that it wasn't even about it. Wasn't about it. And then it turns into, you do this all the time. This is always what happens. This is always, like, it's so unhealthy. It really is. But I got a question for you, Jared.
Sure.
How to start all of this off, if there's a guy out there that hears any of this and he's like, self-compassion, like, what does that even mean to me? How do I even give it some meaning? Where do I even start? And the first thing that comes to my mind is self-awareness. Like, to get to the point of self-compassion and start actually giving that to yourself, you have to be aware that that's actually a need. And I think self-awareness is the first step, the stepping point that actually leads you to all of the rest of the things that you're actually wanting. It's the key that opens all of the doors. But you got to crack that door open. So how do you access self-awareness? what is a really good basic tool that someone could use to even start accessing some like self-awareness? It's gonna burn, it's gonna feel awkward, and it's gonna feel weird for sure. It does. But anyways, I'll shut up. Floor is yours.
Let me think about it. I'm thinking like, what obviously awareness is important, and we need to build in some awareness in there. And I think that opens the door, like you were saying. But how does one go about doing that? Is not by trying to run a marathon. You want to start by slowly opening the door, not slamming it open.
You're
What do I
saying
mean by
don't do
that?
it like Robbie.
Yeah, don't be like me.
Well, I mean, I just don't think you can just full stop. I think you got to slow down before you stop, kind of thing. And so I think that like stillness, right? I don't think people can just immediately stop and just sit in meditation for 4 hours, right? I don't think that many people, even experienced practitioners, can do that. And so maybe what does that look like? It looks like much smaller practices. Like I had to walk myself into slowing down enough to be able to sit long enough to be able to be with my breath. And that was pacing back and forth, and then slower pacing, right? And then a little slower walking, and then breathing while walking, and then eventually sitting down. And so I wouldn't advise anyone to jump in the deep end. What does it look like to start? 60 seconds a day where you actually stop looking outward at all the things you got to do, all the things that are doing based. But you take a moment and you look inside and you ask yourself essentially 3 questions. What am I feeling right now? And looking, you don't have to have a word for it, language for it. What emotion is here, if there is one, right? What am I truly feeling? I think is an important piece right now. And then what is it that I need? 60 seconds, 1 minute. When I teach mindfulness, for example, I don't have people sit down and do meditation. I have them do it in these little informal moments when they're waiting in traffic, when they're waiting for their doctor's appointment, because we want it to be part of our life. That's what we want to be aware of. We don't want to take life and put it on the back burner. We want to have stillness amidst movement. We want balance. We want doing and being, because we need both. And so taking a moment, 60 seconds, once a day, once a week, looking at, what is it that I'm feeling in my body? What emotion is most prevalent? And what is it that I need? Just that. And that awareness then at least gives you some more information. Mm-hmm. Then the mind will do its own thing. We're so good at doing things, right? Just bringing up the awareness piece brings up the fact that, hey, there's something here. And if I know that there's something here, then I can do more with it, or be more flexible around it. It doesn't mean that I have to heal it or I got to get it to go away. It just means, oh, okay, there's something here. I can give myself a little bit more space that might be the case. I have tension in the stomach or gut feeling. And ironically enough, just noticing without in trying to change anything or fix anything already starts to access that aspect of awareness and compassion. And so I think just how you touch into your own body, because that's what's going on right now. And so when you kind of stop or slow down and can check in with that just for a brief moment, and then turn the attention backward and going about your day, many times, frequently is better than long times singularly or in one session.
I've found the hard way that fighting it meant I had to deal with it longer than actually just acknowledging the fact that it's there. Either giving some space to it or putting some words to it. And then it is always seems to give me the power to move on from it without carrying it around a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
I think that is probably a really great way to tie this one out. is with that sort of tool. And what hopefully whoever's listening here today, if that is something that you feel like is worth trying, absolutely give it a try. I know for me, self-awareness and self-compassion has gone a really long way to allowing me to show up for the people that I care about the most.
Yeah, there's really beautifully said. I just want to say one last thing, and that you did so well of bringing it together without even knowing the mindful self-compassion mantra that I love the most, and that's that what I resist persists. What I learn to feel and can start to feel, I can start to heal. And so being able to just recognize that more of the resistance, more of the pushing away, more of the fighting isn't going to bring about the peace that I'm seeking. So, yeah.
Very true. Jared, can you tell our listeners where they can find you if there's anyone that's connected with your message here today and wants to hear more or would like you to help them with whatever it is that they are dealing with on their journey? Because I know you do offer services for men that are looking for what you have. So please do share that with us, and also send us the information so we can make this a part of the episode so people can access you if they want.
Yeah, absolutely. The easiest way to get a hold of me is my website, www.mountainmindfulnessgj for Grand Junction.com. That's mountainmindfulnessgj.com. Contact information, email, all of my contact information should be on there. And also, I'm just happy to be here and contributing and connecting with you. I really don't want to sell services or anything of that sort.
You don't have to, but it's an opportunity to tell people where to find you, man. It's all about helping whoever is out there that is listening, and if they want access to you, I want them to have access to you. That's what this is about. So, thank you, Jared, for showing up and sharing your heart with us. I appreciate you a lot. I look forward to more coffees in the future. Robbie, you got anything else to say before we close her out?
I do. I want to thank you, Jared, for giving us some space and sitting and talking about, self-compassion. And one of the big things I want to, give you props on is, in this day and age of social media and influencers and mentors, is not saying you got to throw the whole book at it. Slowing down, taking your time. That 60-second piece is very crucial. Instead of saying, where is me as a go-getter going 100%, I need to hear that 60-second. The 60-second, maybe even once a week is okay, because then it makes me feel okay, because that's where my mind goes. But in this day and age of, you got to do this, you got to have a morning routine, you got to have an afternoon routine, a nighttime routine. We don't. Give yourself some self-compassion, some love, and everything will be okay. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you.
All right. Take care. To all our listeners, like, subscribe, follow, leave a comment. Let us know how you feel about this episode. Looking forward to bringing you another episode.